Hey there, tubers. This is Brian. My little YouTube name is Not a Wog, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I'm doing this video in response to Vincru's 150 sub contest, and to start off with, he wants to know um, what story arcs got you into comics when you were younger. And first, I'm going to show you these books, and I'm going to apologize because they're going to come at you backwards because I'm doing this on my Mac. My camera's battery died, so. The very first book that I ever bought off of the newsstand, you'd know that if you saw my previous videos. But anyways, it's the first book I ever bought was Wolverine #3, and what I liked about this book was that it was just Wolverine. He was just a guy. He appeared to be just a guy. He didn't really, he wasn't decked out in spandex or all superhero, all that stuff. You didn't see Storm Blast and everything around him. It was just Wolverine out doing his thing. And with the exception of his claws popping when he was fighting the Hand, you wouldn't even know that it was a superhero comic. I remember I think it's this one, the first couple panels. Yeah, he gets into a bar fight and he's a bar. He picks up this big fat guy, calls him Tubby, throws him out a window, and it was just like I say, it was just a good story about a man doing his thing, and it wasn't really superhero related. And I was probably 6 or 7 at the time. And this book has stayed with me. Not this particular copy of it, but this story has stayed with me for all these years. You know, my original copy, as I said in my other video, was, I mean, the cover was gone before you knew it, and it was just ratty tatty, beat up, and I finally eventually threw it away because it was just so bad. When I was a kid, man, I read my comics. I collected them, but I read the hell out of these books, and this one, it really ain't that much better shape, but it's all right. It was, for the price, it was worthwhile. Now I'm going to go to a book that, because a large portion of my collection is at my mother's house. I was in the Navy and I went overseas for 3 years, and while I was, before I left, I took my collection to my mother's, and I just haven't got that from her house yet. So there's still a large portion of books that are there. Everything that I have down here in Virginia is, with the exception of 4 long boxes, is all stuff that I've bought since, in the last year, since like last September, last October. Okay, a little over a year. But anyways, so yeah, and this is actually one that Vincru mentioned. It was the Masters of Evil story arc in Avengers. I don't remember the issue numbers right off the top of my head, but that was one of the first long runs of a story arc that I remember buying when I was a kid and making sure I had to get the next issue every month. And so. And it held my interest. I mean, I loved Captain America, and I loved, Iron Man was cool, and just all the Avengers were really cool. But that particular story arc was, I think it was the first time that I remember, for me, seeing the Masters of Evil come together as a super villain group. And they just beat the snot out of the Avengers for issue after issue after issue. And one of the things that stuck with me about it, was probably like Vincru was describing, where Cap is, they destroy all the stuff, Captain America's personal effects. But for me, it was like when he was looking into his Foot Locker, and you can see that baseball. I don't know who autographed it, but he had an autographed baseball that they had just torn apart. So you see all the threads from the baseball laying there, and the cover's ripped off of it, and the photograph torn in half. That kind of stuff. That stuck with me as a those images stuck with me for a long time. All right, next I'm going to go into some books that I actually have here. These are not the original books that I had when I was a kid, because I saw a huge run of the New Mutants on eBay, and I snapped it up because it was pretty cheap. It was maybe $5-10 for I think 1 through 65. So I was like, hell yeah. This story arc was when Kitty and Doug Ramsey, they went to the Massachusetts Academy because Ramsey got an invitation to the Academy, and Kitty had already been there once, and he wanted somebody to go because he was, blah, 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 a little wishy-washy baby Doug. because that's kind of how I feel about Cypher. But so she went with him, and the White Queen on the airplane catches him, and that was actually in an issue of the X-Men, that part. But so this takes place during at the same time as another one of my favorite story arcs that I do not have the actual issues here for, and that is the Secret Wars, and I'll go into that one next. But it started with it didn't start with issue 13, but with issue 13 on the cover you see where Sam says, "Forget it, Kitty. You know, you're too good for the ex-babies. Remember," something like that, and that's when that's in reference to she was Professor X had kicked her. He didn't kick her out. He removed her from the X-Men lineup and put her with the New Mutants because she was so young and he wanted her with kids her own age. And she had a big fit about that, and she's like, I'm an ex-baby now, just being a brat about it. So that's how that story arc. Well, actually, it doesn't even start the story arc. It just kind of leads into it, I guess. So I'm going to put that. So then that leads us to New Mutants 14, and this is the very first issue of New Mutants that I ever bought, and it was pretty cool. I liked the demon, and again, this is my first introduction to like demons in comic books. Comic book superheroes, but like demons to a 7-8-year-old kid, come on, kind of scary, but really kind of cool at the same time. And it doesn't really get going to like I think it's the last panel when Doug gets the when Doug gets the invite to Massachusetts Academy. So they kind of did the same thing with the end of this book. And so that story arc runs through 14, New Mutants backwards 15, 16. And when I was a kid, I actually didn't get this issue. I mean, when I was a kid, it was at the drugstore, a spinner rack, and that was your choice for comic books in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. So I missed this one. And then, so with 16 and 17, it ended up pitting the New Mutants against the Hellions, who were basically the Hellfire Club's version of the New Mutants. And these books were really cool to me. Again, more of an introduction to supervillains, a team of supervillains. And they were a team of supervillain kids, teenagers, just like with the New Mutants. And I like this cover. It's pretty cool. They got everybody kind of squaring off against their opposite here. You got Wolfsbane and Cat's Eye, Sunspot, and Warpath's brother. Warpath, Thunderbird's brother, my bad. Cannonball. Don't remember his name. It's been a little while. But anyways, it's them facing off against their opposite. And then speaking of facing off against your opposite, issue 17 is again Sam and I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I probably should have opened it up and read it real quick, but who's got time for that? Anyways, I really like this cover. I like the red background and the way they're fighting, the way he zips around Sam and KOs him. So yeah, this the Secret Wars. Oh my God, what can you say about the Secret Wars other than it was awesome? The cover of I think number 4, maybe it's the cover where everybody they threw the mountain on top of the heroes, and the Hulk is holding up the mountain, and everybody else is there with him. That was one of the first covers. I was like, whoa, this is crazy stuff right here. And then they all come together with their little ideas, and they soup up the Iron Man's armor, and they blast a big hole through it, and they save the day. Introduces the symbiote. Just the whole series was really cool. And again, it's one of those things where a large group of heroes against a team of villains. Even though the villains were acting as a team very much, it was still a cool storyline in the end. And the next one, this is gonna be my last story arc thing coming here. I did not read these when I was a kid in this format, and it's the Dark Phoenix saga. When I was a kid, growing up in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, my access to the early X-Men books was the classic X-Men. And I don't have any of those here with me. Again, they're all back home at my mom's place. But one of the things that I loved about those books was they had covers by Art Adams. And oh my God, at the time when I was a kid, Art Adams was amazing. He came along before the Jim Lee and the Todd McFarlane and the Lee Field and all those guys where they had the super detailed line, all kinds of lines, super detailed. Art Adams came along before them, and he was just, man, his stuff just blew me away. To this day, if I see an Art Adams book on the newsstand now, I pick it up. I don't even, well, no, I do take a minute to look inside because there are times when Marvel does this thing where they like to throw really awesome artwork on the cover and then the inside will look like a bag of hammered ass. But if it's got Art Adams on the cover, I usually will buy it just because I love that guy's work so much. So, back to this. Starting it off at, I'm going to start it off. It starts off earlier this. You technically say it starts off when Mastermind starts messing with Phoenix's mind and sending her on those little time slips. I don't remember what issue that started in. I don't think I have the very first issue that started with. But I'm going to start off with issue 31 where they become prisoners of the White Queen, where she captures Kitty. No, I'm sorry. Where she captures Storm and I think Colossus, and then Kitty and Dazzler and Cyclops maybe they go and attempt to rescue them, and then excuse me, that leads into more of being caught by them, by the bad guys. My next cover or the next issue is 133, and this is one of my all-time favorite X-Men covers. It's issue 133, and it's Wolverine on the cover, just beating the snot out of these Hellfire stormtroopers, I guess is what you call them, because they all look the same, just like stormtroopers do. One of my favorite covers ever for X-Men, and I really think that for John Byrne, I really think that he hit his stride early on with the X-Men. I didn't stick with his stuff much after that, but when he was on these books, man, his stuff was really nice in here. And then we have 134, and she becomes the Black Queen, and all that madness that ensues here. And the thing I thought was crazy about these guys when I was a kid was the women were all the Hellfire Club. The women were all dressed in lingerie. I mean, come on. I mean, that's so racy at the time, at least in my mind, when I was a 7-8-year-old kid. Maybe by the time I read these, I was probably like 10 or 12, but still, it was they were running around in their underwear, and granted, superheroes run around in spandex in their underwear anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. Then we get into this amazing cover right here, the Defeated by Dark Phoenix. It's just the look in her eye. It just says "crazy bitch." Don't mess with this one. But it's a really good book too. And let's get into 136. I don't know. They ended up in outer space, something, blah blah blah, whatever. Which leads to this is another one of my favorite X-Men covers, where she gets herself back into a Marvel Girl costume, and she's trying to be Jean Grey again. And again, as you all know, she's doesn't turn out for her so well, as you can see on the cover. So that's it for story arcs that really resonated with me when I was a kid and have kept me in, sucked me in and hooked me and gave me this damn collector bug. Now I'm going to go on to my moniker. It's not a wog. Like I said, I was in the Navy. I spent 20 years in the Navy, and the Navy, they've got a ceremony for when you cross the equator. It's crossing the line. It's Shellback Day. If you've never crossed the equator on a ship in the Navy, you're a wog or a polywog. So since I did cross the line, many times actually, but the first time I crossed the line was on the 29th of June, 1993, on the USS Nimitz CVN 68 at across the equator at longitude 105 degrees 30 minutes. So yeah, so here is my shellback card. And that means that I am not a WOG. So that's my moniker. Now for shout-outs, I think I gave probably the shout-outs that I popped to my head right away on my first video. Comic Quarter, that guy, his collection that he shows, the knowledge that he has is just so, I mean, I think this, between him and Mercenaut, I'm not sure, but I think they probably dig into their books they probably dig into this on occasion and figure out, hey, this is the first appearance of this person or that person. I get the feeling that they may read their books right before they post their videos so that they have them fresh in their minds, because their knowledge is just so great. Or they're, I don't know, Wikipedia or some nonsense. But anyways, so a second guy I would mention is Mercenaut. Again, his videos are really good. He's got his pulse on the whole, the BOLO, be on the lookout for thing with a lot of books. And like him, he says he's getting sick of saying movies. I'm getting sick of hearing movie. You know why? Because it just drives up the price of back issues with speculation, and it kills me because I read comics, or I collect comics, but I read them for the love of it. And so yeah, I don't like paying a whole lot for back issues, but I will do it. And as I showed you in a video earlier today. So let's see, check out Mercenaut and Comic Quarter. Fool Killer, Steve. I don't know any of these guys personally. I haven't interacted too much. I've left a couple of comments here and there, but he's got a really, really large collection. Not just that it's large, he's very knowledgeable about the books. It's a pretty diverse collection. All three of these guys, they don't just stick with primarily what I do and stick with Marvel mostly, but they get all over the spectrum of comics. So it's not just I'm just this, or I just collect this, or I just collect that. They know a lot, and I think they bring a lot to the whole comic collecting community. And I've learned so much from watching their videos. Like, oh wow, I didn't realize that, or like, really, that happened. That's the first appearance of this person or that person. So I've got to say that since I've been watching videos on YouTube, there's become a bit of keeping up with the Joneses things for me, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. I think I would like that book as well, or I think I would like to own that book as well. And so I don't think I'm not trying to outdo anybody, but they're introducing me things that I wouldn't otherwise have looked into on my own, which I think is a good thing. Who else? Greco Fabulous, I mentioned him before also. That guy's he cracks me up. He's pretty funny. Pretty entertaining. Again, finds a lot of cool stuff. A new one that I just found the other day is Sarah Smash. Her collection, she seems like she's kind of new to it, a little bit. But her collection is pretty interesting. I really like those little fun dolls, Bunko fun dolls. Those are pretty cool. I've often wondered who buys those, because I haven't ever bought one, and so now I know who buys them. Vincru, of course. Shout out to you, because this is your contest. I think I'm going to wrap it up now because I'm running up on almost 20 minutes here. And thank you. Thanks for watching.